It's always a terrible thing trying to communicate the tragedy of being called Phil Collins. I often ask my dad, Jackie, and my mother, Michael, why it was they picked that name. They still don't answer. My name is Phil Collins. Very happy to be here today. I'd like to thank Anne Pasternak, Nato Thompson, everybody at Creative Time for inviting me here and to be part of such a wonderful and inspiring weekend. Also like to say hello to the internet. I've been very excited to the fact that there's people at home watching, eating cheese doodles somewhere. Hello. I was very influenced by a generation of artists who circulated around a gallery in the Netherlands called Casco. Also people like Alex Bagg, who worked here in the 90s, beginning to investigate modes of distribution and execution within the social terrain and within the social field, and finding and trying to find works which would come as close to becoming the thing itself in some kind of way. So something which would not try and remain indexical, but would seek to inhabit with all of its problematics and erasing certain modernist functions of identification of the artwork into something which would try and intersect with the ways people behave and the ways in which we think within popular culture, largely, but also within politics. I went to art school in Belfast in Northern Ireland, and again, that specific geographic and social political history was one which influenced me, as did a generation of artists who came out of that specific moment. I went just after the peace fire. I was there for about 4 or 5 years. But I'm also interested in addressing the kind of submerged erotics or the grammar of desire which sits invisibly under certain forms of representation associated with realism, and how the camera itself motivates an unarticulated idea of envy within the subject. So not one of appreciation or recognition or of comprehension, but one also of primal emotional responses connected with something like envy. Today I've brought along a short extract of a film which I made in Germany this year, in and around East Germany, or what was formerly the DDR, where I went to find what had happened to a generation of Marxist teachers, people who taught either Marxism or political economy or Staatsbürgerkunde, which is civics, and what had happened to them and what they thought about in the intervening 20 years. And I was thinking around the time of the rehistoricization of the fall of the wall, which of course focused on dissidents and of people dancing on top of the wall. And I asked myself the question of what happened to people who the tide came in and were somehow left behind. People who were elaborating within the school system in a mandatory lesson a position which was orthodox in effect, not a position which Marxism is endlessly radical within the West and a radical proposition, but one which was orthodox and which supported the state. I'm going to show you a short extract of one of the contributors, Petra Mgoza Zekai, who is speaking about the suicide of her husband, a Tanzanian man, Felix Mgoza, and his suicide coincides basically with the fall of the wall, so she's speaking about a certain kind of grief or loss which happened both territorially and personally for her. I think I'll press it this way.
Und dann, das war ja nun im Mai 89 und dann kam Oktober, November 89. Und das war gleich nochmal, weil die DDR war immer mein Vaterland und das geht jetzt auch noch flöten. So, ich versuche mich zurückzubesinnen und dann gab es das nicht mehr. Es ging ja dann ganz schnell, ML war dann kein Pflichtfach mehr und bis zum Ende des Jahres oder Anfang 1990, es war dann freiwillig, also die Studenten kamen weiterhin zu mir So einfach, weil wir waren dann eher Diskussionsrunden. Mein Gott, wie kann es denn weitergehen? Es ist große Krise, aber Krise kann ja auch Chance sein, ne? Weil da plötzlich kamen neue Ideen, neue Kräfte und bei den Demos, das kam ja erst später, wir wollen ein Deutschland, ne? Am Anfang ging es um eine bessere DDR. Und als es dann begann mit Einig Deutsches Vaterland, dann war das schon wieder vorbei, die Zeit, wo Ideen sprießten und neu gestalten wollen und so. Das war ja dann alles gleich wieder ganz schnell wieder weg. Ne? Die Leute haben alle nur die D-Mark gesehen und Bananen und so und dann, seitdem esse ich auch keine Bananen mehr. Kohl hat damals hier Bananen, Coca-Cola auf dem Karl-Marx-Platz verteilt. Ich esse keine Bananen mehr und trinke natürlich keine Coca-Cola. Also ich bin ja jetzt auch arbeitslos. Es ist alles nicht schön, an dem Tropf vom Land zu hängen und so. Demütigend und entwürdigend auch. Aber damals war ich in Panik geraten. Ich dachte, mein Gott, mein Mann ist weg, ich habe meine Arbeit verloren, mein Land stirbt. Ich kann ja nicht mal mehr meine Kinder ernähren. Und das war dann so ein Punkt, wo ich dachte, nee, weiter mal irgendwie. Du bist jetzt in einem ganz tiefen Loch, du musst jetzt versuchen, wieder rauszukrabbeln. Das war ja nun alles 90 und ich hatte dann Gott sei Dank schon im August 90 die Möglichkeit, eine Umschulung zu machen. Also ich hatte zwei Möglichkeiten, entweder Banker oder Sozialarbeiter und bei Banker wusste ich, gebe jedem Geld, der es braucht. Aber viel mehr hätte ich auch nicht rausgehauen als die Banker, was die heute machen. Ne? Nur, dass keine Armen was davon haben. Und so habe ich 2 Jahre eine Umschulung als Sozialarbeiter gemacht. Und da dann auch wieder so einen Sinn gesehen. Ja, so, ich kann irgendwie noch dazu beitragen, Leute, wenn ich wieder ein bisschen besser drauf bin, zu stützen. Mich selber natürlich auch. Ne? Und wie kann man das am besten machen?
So for the film, I interviewed 10 former Marxist teachers, people who'd been or went on to become pop stars, Schlager singers, or bankers, people who'd worked in the financial sector and transferred their knowledge to that sector. And I came down in the end to 3 different teachers. And the next part of the project is to take 3 former Marxist teachers to Manchester to teach in Manchester schools, at a private school, at a state comprehensive and at a religious school. And why Manchester, as the poet said, so much to answer for, because Marx and Engels spent 22 years in Manchester, the first industrialized city and the first capitalist city, but also the home of the first organized resistance to that economic framework. And they spent months in a library, Chetham's library there, writing what would become the Communist Manifesto and researching Das Kapital. Thank you very much, and good night, Internet. Thank you.